I stared at my design drafts, my emotions still in turmoil. Didn't I die? How could I possibly be here? Just as I was trying to make sense of it all, my phone rang, jolting me out of my thoughts. The caller ID showed Emma's name. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to suppress the seething rage bubbling within, and answered. But the voice on the other end wasn't Emma's. It was one I recognized all too well. A man's voice. "Hey, it's Ryan. My phone ran out of battery, and I happened to run into Emma. She asked me to check if you'd finished your graduation project yet," he said casually. As his voice filled my ears, my breath hitched, and my hands began to tremble uncontrollably. In my past life, I had been oblivious, brushing off anything suspicious in his words. Back then, I was just happy to share my progress with him. But now? Now, I finally saw the truth for what it was. Ryan and Emma must have been conspiring together all along. Fighting to keep my frustration in check, I replied, "I'm still stuck. No inspiration yet," before quickly ending the call. My heart raced in my chest. In my previous life, Ryan, the man I trusted, the man I loved, had orchestrated my downfall. He'd accused me of plagiarizing Emma's designs and spread the accusation all over social media. The backlash had been relentless. Strangers harassed me. People showed up at my door with threats. I had hidden in my room, terrified and too paralyzed to eat. But even that wasn't enough for him. He went further, leaking our private photos and personal information, which attracted vile men to torment me even more. Recalling those harrowing memories sent a shiver down my spine, but I forced myself to refocus. I'd been given a second chance. This time, I would not let them destroy me. Steeling myself, I opened Emma's social media page. Her recent design posts weren't bad, but none of them stood out. Just as I was about to close the page, a new post caught my attention. The image took a moment to load, and when it finally appeared, an icy chill coursed through me. The design was all too familiar. It was identical to the one I had just finished moments ago, down to the tiniest detail in the bottom left corner. Her caption read, "Finally completed my design draft." I stared at the screen, a whirlwind of emotions threatening to consume me. How could this be? How could she have my design? The comments under Emma's post were already flooding in. "Wow, this is genius-level work. You're not leaving anyone else a chance, are you, Emma?" Honestly, even if I tried to copy, I couldn't do it as well as this. Just then, the door to my dorm room swung open. Startled, I quickly shoved my designs into a hidden corner. It was Claire, one of my roommates. Noticing the frustration on my face, she perked up, her excitement barely contained. "Avery, did you see Emma's post? Her new design is insane. She used to be nowhere near this level." In my previous life, I had brushed off Claire's remarks with polite responses before rushing to submit my own project. But now, I understood why none of my roommates had stood by me when I was accused of plagiarism. Emma's performance had already won them over. Feigning curiosity, I asked, "Emma?" As though I was genuinely interested. Claire's eyes lit up at my response. She pulled her chair closer, reopening the post that had already burned into my memory. "Just look at this draft. I can already imagine how stunning the final product will be. It's a masterpiece," she gushed, her enthusiasm pouring out. I struggled to listen, my chest tight with emotions. Was history about to repeat itself? As if unaware of my silence, Claire suddenly added, "But don't you think that gardenia motif looks a lot like your style?" Her words made me freeze. I stared at the black and white sketch of the flower. The suffocating pain in my chest disappeared, replaced by a spark of determination as a plan began to form in my mind. "Claire," I said evenly, "if I told you her design is identical to mine, would you believe me?" Her eyes widened in shock. For the first time, I saw a flicker of belief in her expression. Seeing her reaction, I pressed on. I finished my draft just minutes ago, yet she posted it almost immediately afterward. The one you just showed me matches mine exactly. Reaching into my hidden stack of papers, I pulled out my draft and placed it on the table. It was an exact replica of Emma's post. Claire's jaw dropped as she stared at the screen, then back at my design. She was speechless, her gaze darting between the two. After a long, tense silence, she finally managed to speak. There's no way she could have drawn this in just 10 minutes, let alone create something so identical. How did she even get your design? I don't know, I replied, shaking my head. But something strange is going on. None of this makes sense. In my past life, I had been too naive, too trusting. But this time, I refused to be that person again. If Emma had stolen my design once, there was no doubt she would do it again, especially with Ryan supporting her. My eyes narrowed with resolve. I needed a plan. Turning to Claire, whose concern appeared genuine, I said, "Claire, I need you to keep this a secret. Don't tell anyone what I just showed you." "Of course, Avery, I promise," she replied, looking a little hurt that I even felt the need to ask. "I won't tell a soul, but what are you going to do? If you can't clear your name, everyone will believe you copied her." My fingers tightened around the edges of my drafts, crumpling the paper slightly. Taking a deep breath to steady myself, I replied, "I'll figure something out, but first..." Without hesitation, I grabbed my design drafts and began ripping them in half, then tearing them again and again. Each shred felt like a release, a way to vent the anger simmering inside me. Finally, I threw the scraps into the trash. Claire gasped, scrambling to collect the pieces that had spilled out of the bin. "What are you doing? I actually wanted to see this design completed." But I simply smiled, a weight lifting off my chest for the first time in what felt like ages. "If I can't walk this path, I'll create a new one," I told her. "It's time I change the game." Confusion flickered in her eyes, but she didn't press further. Just then, her phone alarm went off, signaling it was time for her part-time job. "I have to go," she said reluctantly, gathering her things. "But Avery, if you need help with anything, just call me, okay?" "I will." "Thanks, Claire," I replied as she hurried out the door. Now alone in the dorm room, I collapsed onto my bed, exhaustion washing over me. The events of the past few hours were overwhelming, but they were nothing compared to the suffering I had endured in my previous life. Closing my eyes, I tried to rest, but a nagging thought wouldn't leave me alone. Why had Ryan used Emma's phone to call me earlier? Why had he only revealed his true nature after I was at my lowest in my past life? A suspicion took root in my mind. Could it be that Ryan and Emma had been involved behind my back all along? Picking up my phone, I began scrolling through their social media accounts, meticulously searching for clues. After a few minutes, I found it. A post from Emma dated 6 months ago. It was a photo of her holding hands with a man, a half-eaten cake visible in the background. The cake was unmistakable. I remembered seeing it in one of Ryan's posts and had even asked him about it. He'd told me he was celebrating a friend's birthday. But now, looking at Emma's post from the same day, it was clear they had been celebrating together. The man in the photo was Ryan. A bitter smile crept across my lips. My so-called boyfriend had been cheating on me with Emma all along, and it had taken dying and coming back to life for me to finally uncover the truth. Surprisingly, I didn't feel as heartbroken as I thought I would. The pain I'd endured in my past life had long since hardened into cold hatred. I wouldn't shed a single tear for him this time. Without hesitation, I opened my chat with Ryan and sent him a single message. "It's over. We're done." Before he could reply, I blocked him on every platform. It felt as though a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in a long while, I slept soundly, free from the chains that had bound me to a toxic past. When I woke up, the sun had already set, and the dorm was alive with the sound of my roommates returning. Claire noticed me stirring and quickly pulled me aside. "Avery, Ryan called me earlier," she began, her tone urgent. "He asked why you suddenly broke up with him and what happened between you two." I cut her off before she could continue. I couldn't afford to trust anyone completely, not yet. "Claire, did you tell anyone about what we discussed earlier?" I asked, my voice sharp. She looked almost offended. "Of course not. I haven't breathed a word of it to anyone. I'm keeping it a secret, just like you asked." Relieved, I finally answered her earlier question. "Ryan and Emma have been seeing each other behind my back. I've known for a while but decided I'd had enough." Her eyes widened in disbelief. "That two-faced bastard? And with Emma, of all people?" I shrugged, unwilling to dwell on it any longer. "I don't care about him anymore, but I need to keep my distance from them. I can't let them drag me down again. What I needed now was a fresh start. A new design idea was forming in my mind, something entirely different from anything I'd done before. It would take everything I had to bring it to life, but it was my only chance to prove myself. Over the next few days, I poured every waking moment into finding inspiration. I shut off my phone to avoid distractions, roaming the city in search of ideas. I visited parks, museums, and even tucked away alleyways, letting the sights and sounds of the world guide me. One evening, while resting in a small hotel room, an idea struck me like a lightning bolt. I grabbed my sketchbook and began drawing, furiously. Hours flew by as the sun set outside, but I didn't stop until the design was complete. Staring at the vibrant red dress I had sketched, I allowed myself a small smile. This design was unlike anything I'd ever created before. Bold, raw, and infused with the spirit of my rebirth. "This time they won't take it from me," I whispered. For the next few days, I wandered the city, hunting for the perfect materials to bring my concept to life. I searched tirelessly for fabrics, trims, and accessories that would elevate my design into something truly unique. Though exhausting, each step filled me with a renewed sense of purpose. Having already lost one design, I refused to take any chances with this one. I went to great lengths to keep my location and work ideas secret. I even blocked everyone on social media, determined to eliminate distractions. Claire had texted me a few times, but I ignored her messages. My focus had to remain on this project. One evening, as I lay on the hotel bed, mentally drained but still resolute, another spark of inspiration hit me. I leapt to my feet, grabbed a fresh sheet of paper, and let the ideas pour out of me. The lines seemed to come alive as I sketched, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. Hours passed, and by the time the sun dipped below the horizon, I had completed the new design. This one was even better than the last, filled with fierce passion and a reflection of the fire that burned within me. I had created a vibrant red dress, adorned with intricate details that symbolized strength and rebirth. It was unlike anything I'd ever envisioned before. Yet, as I admired the finished draft, a nagging unease crept into my mind. How could I be certain Emma wouldn't somehow steal this design too? I had been so careful, kept everything so secret. But considering what had happened before, I couldn't shake the fear that she would find a way. Nothing felt impossible when it came to protecting my new creation. I decided to produce the dress myself, spending days running between tailor shops and carefully supervising every stage of its production. I couldn't afford a single mistake. The final piece had to be flawless. When I finally returned to the hotel with the finished dress in hand, a wave of relief washed over me. But my sense of accomplishment was short-lived. Curious, I made the mistake of checking my phone and opened Emma's social media. Half expecting to see something vaguely familiar, I was met with something far worse. A photo of a red dress identical to mine. My heart sank, and a chill ran down my spine. How is this even possible? Emma's post was captioned, "A new creation for a new beginning." The comments were overflowing with praise. "This is even better than your last design, Emma. You're truly a genius. How do you keep coming up with such unique ideas?" A cold fury swept through me. She had stolen my design again, despite all the precautions I had taken. My mind raced, desperate to figure out how she was doing this. Was she hacking my devices? Spying on me somehow? I had been so careful. There was no way anyone could have seen my work. Clenching my fists, I fought to control the storm of rage building inside me. This time, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I would expose her, no matter what it took. Lost in my thoughts, I was startled by my phone ringing. It was Claire. I hesitated before answering. "Avery, are you okay?" she asked, her voice brimming with concern. "I've been trying to reach you. You need to check the school forum right now." "What's going on?" I asked, my voice tight with frustration. "It's Emma," Claire explained hurriedly. "She's spreading rumors about you again. She's claiming you threatened her and tried to steal her designs. People are even saying you vandalized her drafts." My grip on the phone tightened as I quickly opened the school forum. At the top was a post from Emma. "Hello everyone. I'm Emma. I wanted to clarify some things. Lately, someone has been trying to sabotage my work and has even resorted to threatening me. I don't want to reveal who it is, but I've been pushed to the brink. All I've ever wanted is to create freely, but now I feel cornered." The comments beneath her post were full of sympathy. "Stay strong, Emma. Whoever's doing this is disgusting. Does anyone else think it's Avery? She's been acting weird lately." As I read through the comments, it felt like I was reliving my past life all over again. The same twisted lies turning everyone against me. But this time, I refused to be a helpless victim. I packed my belongings, checked out of the hotel, and returned to campus. Walking through the hallways, I could hear whispers trailing behind me, but they were nothing compared to what I had endured before. Instead of confronting Emma publicly, I decided to be more strategic. I went straight to Professor Williams, my academic advisor, and laid everything out. "Professor, I need to report something," I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Emma has been stealing my designs, and now she's spreading false accusations about me. I have evidence to prove it." He regarded me thoughtfully before nodding. "Avery, these are serious allegations. Do you have concrete proof?" "I do," I replied. "But I need your help to clear my name." Together, we devised a plan to expose Emma at the upcoming design showcase. It was the perfect opportunity to reveal the truth in front of everyone. That evening, I created an anonymous account and posted my side of the story on the school forum. "I'm Avery. I want to clarify that I have not threatened anyone or stolen designs. All my work is my own, created through my efforts. The accusations against me have caused significant distress, and I am taking a temporary leave to focus on my mental health." The post quickly climbed to the top, sparking heated debates. "She's just trying to play the victim. Why doesn't she provide proof if she's innocent?" "Maybe Emma isn't as innocent as she seems. I knew this wasn't enough to clear my name, but it was a start. Now, all I had to do was prepare for the design showcase. For the next several days, I shut myself away, meticulously planning my next move. This was my last chance to prove myself, and I couldn't afford any mistakes. Emma had stolen from me again, but this time, I was determined to expose her for the fraud she was. I avoided all distractions, staying inside and working tirelessly on a new design, something completely original that no one could replicate. Time was my greatest enemy. I had only a week to create the entire piece from scratch. Determined, I poured every ounce of energy into the project, barely sleeping more than a few hours each night. I kept my materials locked away, my phone turned off to prevent any leaks. This time, I was taking no chances. Emma had her eyes on me, but this time, she wouldn't catch even a glimpse of my new design. As the deadline for the showcase loomed, my anxiety grew. The thought of her plotting something else lingered in my mind. What if she tried to sabotage me again? But I forced those fears aside, determined to stay focused. Finally, the day of the showcase arrived. The event was a grand spectacle, with design students presenting their graduation projects before professors, industry professionals, and potential employers. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement, the air thick with anticipation. I arrived early, dressed simply in black to maintain a low profile. As I set up my station, I noticed the other students stealing glances at me, whispering among themselves. It was clear that Emma's smear campaign had turned most of them against me. But I wasn't the timid girl I used to be, and their opinions no longer mattered. I was here to set the record straight. As I made the final adjustments to my display, a familiar voice called out behind me. I turned to see Claire rushing over, worry etched on her face. "Avery, I heard Emma talking to Ryan earlier," she said breathlessly. "They're planning something. You need to be careful." My heart sank, but I kept my expression neutral. "What did you hear?" I asked. "She was saying that if your design impresses the judges, they'll find a way to discredit you," Claire whispered. "I think they're planning to accuse you of plagiarizing again." "Let them try," I replied, my voice cold and steady. "I'm ready for whatever they throw at me this time." Claire looked at me with a mix of concern and admiration. "You've changed, Avery. I've never seen you this confident before." I gave her a faint smile. I've had enough of being walked all over. As the showcase began, applause filled the hall as students presented their designs. Emma was scheduled to go right before me. From the sidelines, I watched as she confidently presented her original designs, basking in the judges' enthusiastic praise. Her smug expression was infuriating, but I kept my composure. When my turn finally came, I took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. I unveiled my latest creation, a vibrant red dress adorned with intricate embroidery that shimmered under the spotlight. The judges leaned forward, intrigued. This design was unlike anything I'd created before, a bold statement reflecting my journey and the fire that had reignited within me. The audience was silent at first, their eyes glued to my work. Then, slowly, the applause began. It started hesitantly, but quickly grew louder. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to savor the satisfaction of the moment I had worked so hard for. But just as I was about to step down, Emma stood from her seat, her voice ringing out across the room. "Excuse me, everyone. I have something to say," she announced, her tone dripping with false sweetness. I froze and turned to face her as the room fell silent, all eyes now on her. "This design looks awfully familiar, doesn't it?" she said, a fake smile plastered on her face. "In fact, I have proof that Avery stole this design from me, just like she's done before." A collective gasp rippled through the audience. My fists clenched, but I stayed calm. I had anticipated a move like this. Emma held up her phone, displaying a photo of a red dress nearly identical to mine, with a timestamp from a week ago. "I posted this design on my social media last week," she claimed. "Avery must have seen it and copied it." The judges turned to me, their expressions stern. "Do you have anything to say in your defense, Avery?" one of them asked. I smiled and pulled out my own phone. "Yes, I do," I replied. Over the past week, I had meticulously documented every step of my design process, from sketching and fabric selection to stitching the dress together. I connected my phone to the projector and played a video showing my progress. The timestamps were clear, proving I had completed the design days before Emma's supposed post. The audience watched, in stunned silence as the video played. When it ended, I turned to Emma, meeting her now pale and panicked expression. As you can see, I said calmly, I created this design entirely on my own, and unlike Emma, I have evidence to back it up. The judges exchanged whispers before the head judge spoke. It seems clear to us that Avery's design is original. Emma, do you have any further evidence? Emma stammered, unable to come up with a response. Her once smug confidence had crumbled, replaced by sheer panic. The audience, who had previously whispered against me, now turned on her. Then Claire stepped forward, holding up her phone. I'd like to add something, she said. I've seen Avery working on this design from the very beginning. Emma has been lying, and I have messages to prove it. With that final blow, Emma's facade shattered. She tried to defend herself, but it was too late. The crowd had already made up their minds. The judges dismissed Emma's accusations and commended me for my resilience. As I walked off the stage, Claire hugged me tightly. You did it, Avery. You finally beat them. But I wasn't satisfied just yet. This was only the beginning. Ryan and Emma had taken everything from me in my previous life, and now it was time for them to pay. After the showcase, my fight was far from over. The atmosphere on campus changed drastically. Whispers trailed Emma wherever she went, and her once loyal supporters had turned into harsh critics. The judges' praise for my design had spread like wildfire, and now everyone knew she had tried to frame me. But I wasn't naive enough to let my guard down. Ryan and Emma were cornered, and desperate people often resort to desperate measures. That evening, as I packed up my station, Claire rushed over, her face pale with worry. Avery, you need to check the school forum. Emma's not done yet, she said breathlessly. I pulled out my phone and opened the forum, bracing myself for whatever new drama Emma had stirred up. Sure enough, the top post was from her, a desperate attempt to salvage her reputation. Everyone, please hear me out. I admit there were misunderstandings, but Avery has been threatening me behind the scenes, trying to ruin my reputation. I have messages and screenshots to prove it. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Threatening her? The irony of her accusation was almost laughable, considering she had stolen my work twice. It was a last-ditch effort to drag me down with her, but the damage to her credibility had already been done. No one was buying her story anymore, especially after the evidence I had presented at the showcase. Still, I knew I needed to act fast before she managed to sway anyone. I quickly typed out a response. Emma, you've already been exposed in front of everyone. If you have any real evidence, go ahead and show it. But if all you have are lies, be prepared to face the consequences. My reply gained traction almost immediately, with comments flooding in to support me. Avery's right. Emma's been caught red-handed. Does she really think we'll fall for her lies again? Just give it up already, Emma. As the comments poured in, it became clear that her smear campaign was failing. But I knew this wasn't over yet. I needed to end it for good. The next day, I met with Professor Williams to discuss the situation. Professor, I need your help to clear this mess up. Emma won't stop unless she's forced to, I said firmly. Professor Williams nodded, his expression thoughtful. Avery, I believe you, but the school needs irrefutable proof. Do you have anything that can definitively disprove Emma's accusations? I took a deep breath. I do. I've saved all the video timestamps and chat logs showing I created my designs long before Emma posted hers. I'm ready to present them to the school board. We arranged a meeting with the board for the following morning. As I left the professor's office, my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Avery, it's Ryan, came the voice I loathed. I stayed silent, letting him squirm. Avery, look, I'm sorry for everything. I got caught up in Emma's lies. She made me believe you were trying to sabotage her, Ryan stammered. I didn't know the full story. Please, can we talk? I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. Ryan, I've already blocked you everywhere for a reason. There's nothing left to say. Please, let me meet you just once. I want to make things right, he pleaded. I sighed, tired of his excuses. You had your chance, Ryan. Now, I'm done with you. If you or Emma try anything else, I'll make sure you both face the consequences. Before he could respond, I hung up and blocked the number. He was only reaching out now because he saw Emma's ship sinking and wanted to save himself. I wasn't falling for his fake apologies. The next morning, I walked into the meeting with the school board, armed with all the evidence I had painstakingly gathered. Emma was already there, looking pale and nervous. I presented my case, showing the videos and chat logs that detailed my design process. The board members listened intently. Emma tried to interrupt, scrambling for excuses, but her desperation was evident. I had presented undeniable evidence, but Emma desperately tried to dismiss it, accusing me of fabricating everything. Professor Williams stepped in, his voice firm. Emma, we've already verified Avery's evidence. Unless you have concrete proof, you need to stop these baseless accusations. Emma's face turned red, her hands trembling as she realized the walls were closing in. This isn't fair. Avery is lying, she screamed, but her words fell on deaf ears. Finally, the head of the board spoke, their tone resolute. Emma, based on the evidence presented, it is clear that you have been dishonest. Your actions have not only harmed your classmates, but also tarnished the reputation of this institution. Effective immediately, you are expelled. The room filled with gasps. Emma collapsed into her seat, tears streaming down her face. But I felt no sympathy. She had done everything in her power to destroy me, and now she was finally facing the consequences of her actions. As I left the room, a weight lifted from my shoulders. For the first time, I felt free from the shadows of my past. But this wasn't over yet. There was still Ryan, the snake who had betrayed me. On my way out, I received a text from Claire. Congrats on the victory, Avery, but be careful. Ryan's been asking around about you. I smiled to myself. Let him come. This time, I was ready. News of Emma's expulsion spread like wildfire across campus. The once admired designer had fallen from grace, and everyone buzzed about her downfall. While it was satisfying to see Emma get what she deserved, I knew my fight wasn't over. Ryan was still out there, the man who had betrayed me not only in this life but in the last as well. The next few days passed in relative peace, allowing me to focus on refining my new designs. But I knew Ryan wouldn't give up so easily. True to form, he began reaching out to my friends, trying to find a way to talk to me. Claire warned me he'd been seen lurking around campus, asking about my schedule. But I wasn't afraid. This time, I was ready. One evening, as I returned to my apartment, I saw a familiar figure leaning against the wall near my door. It was Ryan. He looked disheveled, a far cry from the confident, charming facade he once wore. Avery, please, just hear me out, he begged the moment he saw me. I crossed my arms, staring at him coldly. Why should I? You chose Emma over me, remember? Now that she's gone, you want to crawl back to me? It's not like that, he protested, stepping closer. I made a mistake. Emma manipulated me. I didn't realize what she was doing until it was too late. I laughed bitterly, the sound echoing in the hallway. Oh, so now it's all Emma's fault? How convenient. His expression shifted to desperation. Avery, I swear I never wanted to hurt you. I was just confused. But I'm here now, trying to make things right. You're only here because you're scared, I said, stepping closer. Emma's been exposed, and you know you're next. You're not trying to help me. You're trying to save yourself. His face paled, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Please, Avery, he whispered, lowering his voice. Let's not make this worse. If you keep pushing, I'll have no choice but to protect myself. I knew he was trying to intimidate me, but I refused to back down. Go ahead, Ryan. Do your worst. But just know, I'm not the same person you betrayed. I have evidence, I have support, and I have nothing left to lose. The steel in my voice must have struck a nerve. His shoulders slumped in defeat as he backed away. You don't understand, Avery, he muttered. If I go down, I'm taking you with me. I watched him walk away, my heart pounding. Ryan was desperate, and that made him dangerous. If he was willing to threaten me, there was no telling what he would do next. The following morning, I decided to take the initiative. I met with Professor Williams to share my concerns. Professor, I believe Ryan is planning something. He's already tried to threaten me. I need to protect myself, I explained. Professor Williams nodded thoughtfully. I'll speak to the administration. If Ryan tries to pull anything, we'll handle it. But in the meantime, be careful. Avery. Leaving his office, I felt a sense of determination. I had faced worse in my previous life and refused to let Ryan intimidate me into submission. Still, a nagging feeling told me he was planning something big. That afternoon, as I worked on my latest design at home, I stayed vigilant, knowing that this battle was far from over. I received a message from an unknown number. Meet me at the Yata old cafe near campus tonight at 8 p.m. Come alone if you want to know the truth about Ryan. My instincts screamed that it was a trap, but curiosity got the better of me. If there was even a chance of uncovering Ryan's plans, I had to take it. Still, I wasn't going in unprepared. I messaged Claire, letting her know where I was headed, and asked her to call me if she didn't hear back by 8:30. The cafe was nearly empty when I arrived, its dim lighting casting long shadows that made the atmosphere even tenser. I scanned the room and spotted Ryan sitting at a corner table, looking more disheveled than ever. You actually came, he said, surprise evident in his tone. You said you had something to tell me. So talk, I replied, keeping my distance. He took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly. Avery, I'm done pretending. The truth is, Emma wasn't the mastermind behind all of this. She was just the face of it. The real person pulling the strings was me. His words hit like a punch to the gut, but I forced myself to stay calm. Why go through all this trouble just to destroy me? Ryan's face twisted into a bitter smile. Because you always had what I wanted. The talent, the recognition, the praise. No matter how hard I worked, you were always one step ahead. So when Emma approached me with a plan to ruin you, I took it. You're pathetic, I spat, disgusted. All of this because of jealousy? It was more than jealousy, Avery, he hissed, his eyes wild. You don't know what it's like to be constantly overshadowed, to watch everyone praise you while ignoring my hard work. I shook my head, barely able to believe what I was hearing. You think that justifies everything you've done? The lies? The betrayals? Ryan slammed his fists on the table, drawing stares from the few patrons in the cafe. I had no choice, but it's not too late, Avery. You and I, we can still fix this. We can work together. I stepped back, repulsed. You think I'd ever trust you again after everything you've done? Fine, he snapped, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. Then if I can't have you on my side, I'll make sure you lose everything. This isn't over, Avery. I turned and walked out of the cafe, my heart pounding. Ryan's confession confirmed what I'd suspected all along. He was willing to go to any lengths to destroy me. But this time, I had the upper hand. On my way home, I called Claire. I have a plan, I told her. It's time to put an end to this once and for all. Ryan had made his move, but now it was my turn. I wasn't about to let him ruin my life again. This time, I was prepared to fight back and ensure he paid for everything he'd done. His threats echoed in my mind long after I left the cafe. but I refused to let them shake me. Ryan wasn't bluffing. This was a man who had betrayed me once and would stop at nothing to drag me down with him. But I wasn't the same naive girl who let herself be blindsided. I had a plan, and it was time to set it in motion. The first step was reaching out to Claire. "I need your help," I said over the phone, my voice steady. "Ryan is planning something, and I need to stay one step ahead." Claire didn't hesitate. "Anything you need, Avery. What's the plan?" "I'm going to set a trap," I explained. "Ryan thinks he's smart, but he's underestimating me. I need to lure him out and gather undeniable evidence of his schemes." We decided to use the school's upcoming fashion showcase as the battleground. It was the perfect stage, an event where students presented their final projects to industry professionals scouting for new talent. It would be the ideal opportunity to expose Ryan. Over the next few days, Claire and I spread the word that I was working on an all-new, groundbreaking design. We let the rumor slip in subtle, calculated ways, ensuring it would reach Ryan. If I knew him as well as I thought, he wouldn't be able to resist the temptation to sabotage me one last time. Meanwhile, I worked tirelessly on my real design, keeping it locked away in my apartment. The design I worked on publicly was a decoy, meant to keep Ryan distracted. I knew he would send someone to steal or tamper with it, and that's exactly what I was counting on. 3 days before the showcase, Claire called me late at night. "Avery, you were right. Ryan's definitely up to something. I overheard him talking to some guys about taking care of your project." A rush of satisfaction filled me. Everything was falling into place. "Good. Let him think he's won," I replied. "But make sure he doesn't suspect anything. The last thing we need is for him to realize it's a setup." The night before the showcase, I stayed up late, ensuring everything was ready. Hidden. Cameras were installed around my workspace to catch any tampering, and I set traps to alert me if someone tried breaking into my apartment. Sure enough, around 2 a.m., the motion detector near my workspace went off. My phone buzzed with an alert, and I quickly checked the camera feed. There he was, Ryan, sneaking into my studio, a small flashlight in hand. My heart raced, but I forced myself to stay calm. This was exactly what I had planned for. I watched in silence as he rummaged through my workspace, searching for the design he thought would secure my downfall. He didn't know he was being recorded from multiple angles. As Ryan rifled through my things, he found the decoy design I had left out intentionally. I watched with grim satisfaction as he took photos of the fake sketches, convinced he had struck gold. Once he was done, he quietly slipped out, completely unaware he had walked right into my trap. The next morning, the day of the showcase, I met with Professor Williams. "Professor, I have evidence that Ryan has been trying to sabotage me again," I said, showing him the footage from the previous night. The professor watched the video, shock and anger flashing across his face. "This is serious, Avery. With this evidence, we can take immediate action against him." I nodded. "I want to reveal this publicly during the showcase. Ryan has tried to ruin my life more than once, and it's time everyone knows who he really is." Professor Williams agreed, and we made arrangements to present the evidence during my presentation. As I walked into the venue, the tension in the room was palpable. Ryan was there, smugly chatting with students who still believed his lies. I ignored him, focusing on what needed to be done. Claire gave me a thumbs up from across the room, signaling that everything was in place. The event proceeded as planned, with students presenting their designs one by one. When it was finally my turn, I took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. "Today, I'm not just here to present a design," I began, my voice steady and confident. "I'm here to reveal the truth." The room fell silent. Ryan's confident smile faltered, though he still looked smug, convinced I had nothing on him. I connected my phone to the projector, displaying the footage of Ryan sneaking into my studio. Gasps filled the room as everyone watched him desperately trying to steal my designs. And just in case anyone doubts what you're seeing, I continued. Here are the timestamps proving this happened just last night. Ryan's face turned ashen. He stood up, stammering. This is a lie. She set me up. Yes, I did set you up, I said, stepping forward, my voice ringing with authority. Because I knew you would try to sabotage me again. You did it once, and I wasn't going to let you do it twice. The room erupted into murmurs. Professors, judges, and students stared at Ryan with disgust. Finally, the head judge spoke. Ryan, given this evidence, we have no choice but to disqualify you and report your actions to the administration. Ryan's eyes blazed with fury, but he was cornered. He tried to storm out of the room, but security stopped him. As he was escorted away, he turned to glare at me one last time. This isn't over, Avery, Ryan shouted. You'll regret this. But I simply smiled. No, Ryan, it's over. You just haven't realized it yet. The showcase ended with a standing ovation for my presentation. As the applause died down, Claire rushed over to hug me. You did it, Avery! You finally exposed them! I took a deep breath, allowing myself to feel the weight lifting from my shoulders. Yeah, I did, I said softly. And now I can finally move on. As I looked around the room, filled with people who had once doubted me, I knew this was just the start of my journey. With Ryan and Emma out of the picture, the path ahead was clear. It was time to embrace my talent and build the future I had always dreamed of. With Ryan and Emma finally exposed, the weight I had carried for so long was gone. For the first time in forever, I could breathe easily. The relief was overwhelming, but there was also a strange emptiness. My life had been consumed by the fight, and now that the battle was over, I wasn't sure what came next. The days after the showcase were a whirlwind. The school administration wasted no time expelling Ryan for his actions, and news of his sabotage attempt spread like wildfire across social media. Emma, on the other hand, went completely silent as her supporters abandoned her one by one. But for me, life was finally starting to turn around. My designs from the showcase had caught the attention of several industry professionals. Offers started pouring in. Companies wanted to collaborate. Magazines wanted to feature my work. And I even received invitations to showcase my designs at fashion weeks in major cities. One evening, as I was organizing my emails, Claire barged into my apartment, grinning ear to ear. Avery, you won't believe it. Your name is everywhere. They're calling you the rising star of the fashion world. I couldn't help but smile. It still feels surreal, I admitted. After everything that's happened, I didn't expect things to turn around so quickly. You deserve it, Claire said, pulling me into a tight hug. You fought hard for this. Now, it's time for you to shine. But even as I celebrated these small victories, I knew my journey was far from over. The fashion world was competitive, and I had only just begun to make my mark. I needed to stay focused, stay sharp, and most importantly, never let my guard down again. A week after the showcase, I received an email that caught my attention. It was an invitation to a private fashion event hosted by one of the most prestigious design firms in New York. They were interested in showcasing my work and wanted to meet with me to discuss a potential collaboration. Avery, this is huge, Claire exclaimed when I showed her the email. You have to go. I nodded, my mind racing. This was the opportunity I had been waiting for. If I could make a strong impression at this event, it could open doors I'd only dreamed of. But there was also a part of me that was hesitant. I had been burned before by people pretending to help me, only to stab me in the back. Do you think it's safe? I asked Claire, voicing my doubts. What if it's another trap? Claire shook her head. Avery, you can't live your life in fear. Not everyone is out to get you. Besides, you've proven you can handle whatever comes your way. You're stronger now. Her words gave me the confidence I needed. I decided to take the risk and accepted the invitation. Within a few days, arrangements were made, and I was on a flight to New York. The city was alive with energy when I arrived, and the fashion event was everything I had imagined. The venue was a luxurious ballroom filled with designers, influencers, and industry insiders. It was the perfect place to network and showcase my talents. As I walked through the crowd, I could feel eyes on me. Some people recognized me from the recent scandal, but most were genuinely interested in my work. For the first time, I was being seen for my talent, rather than overshadowed by lies. Just as I was starting to relax, I noticed a familiar face in the crowd. It was Emma. My heart skipped a beat, but I forced myself to stay calm. What was she doing here? Hadn't she already been disgraced enough? Emma made her way toward me, cautiously, her usual confident demeanor replaced by desperation. "Avery, can we talk, please?" she pleaded. I stood there, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to walk away, but another part was curious about what she had to say. "Fine," I said curtly, leading her to a quieter corner. Emma's eyes were red like she had been crying. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," she stammered. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I've lost everything. Ryan abandoned me. My reputation is ruined, and no one will work with me anymore." I crossed my arms, keeping my expression cold. "You expect me to feel sorry for you after everything you did to me?" She flinched at the harshness of my tone but pressed on. "I know I made mistakes. I was jealous and insecure. I let Ryan manipulate me, but I never wanted things to go this far." I shook my head, unable to feel any sympathy. "You're only sorry because you got caught. If things had gone your way, you wouldn't be here apologizing. You'd still be trying to ruin my life." Emma's shoulders slumped, and for a moment I almost felt a pang of pity. "I've learned my lesson," she said quietly. "I just want a second chance." But I had no intention of letting her back into my life. "A second chance?" I repeated, my voice icy. "I gave you my trust once, and you destroyed it. That's not something you get back." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing alone in the corner. I didn't need her apologies. I was done letting people like her control my life. The rest of the night went smoothly. By the time the event ended, I had made connections that would help propel my career forward. As I stood on the balcony, gazing out at the glittering city lights, I felt a sense of closure. Ryan and Emma were no longer threats. I had faced them, head on, exposed their lies, and come out on top. But more than that, I had found my strength again. As I sipped my champagne, I allowed myself to dream of the future, a future where I was no longer defined by the betrayals of the past, but by the talent and determination that had brought me here. The world was finally mine to conquer, and I was ready. If you like this story, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories like these only at Storytimes.